So this video is a bit different. I'm not in my usual studio right now, but straight at my workstation. And today I'm going to walk you through the best OBS Studio plus NDI settings for recording in 4K with the brand new Nvidia RTX 5080, of course. All right, so why does this matter? Well, first off, the RTX 5080's NVENC AV1 encoder has improvements over the older GPUs. That's number one. Number two, this is a big deal for OBS users because we want less GPU load plus better quality at lower bit rates, right? Especially when we are playing, AAA games and we want to stream or record it, the OBS generally is going to take resources from the GPU, and then let alone if you want to play in 4K or 1440p, that's going to be very taxing on the GPU, and we don't want that. We want to make sure there's no bottleneck, so we want to alleviate the capturing in OBS to another computer, in my case, the Unraid server. And I've tested this both on my gaming PC and through my NDI setup into my OBS workstation, actually the Unraid server. So everything I'll show you here comes from real-world testing, not just, theory. Well, at least optimal in my situation. All right, so let me just show you the NDI settings for my gaming PC right now. So basically, on the gaming PC, you don't really need to do much except for setting the video canvas, base canvas. In my case, this is in 4K. Output scaled resolution, no scaling there. It's still 4K, and so you don't need the downscale filter if you're not downscaling. Common FPS value at 60. The output here, you don't really need this one since we are sending it through NDI to my Unraid server. We'll go to advanced instead. I set the process priority above normal, and then video renderer, of course, it's in direct 3D 11. Color format is at NV12, especially I have an OLED screen, right? So I wanted to run in HDR for 1000 nits, but unfortunately NDI right now only accepts or supports SDR or Rec 709, not really HDR. So it doesn't really, it kind of makes it a bit washed out when you record. So we are setting the color space at Rec 709, and this one is a bit tricky here. The color range, I've set it to limited because when I set it to full, sometimes when you're playing, especially when I'm playing with HDR games, but you're recording in SDR, it gets washed out. So you just want to have this color range to limited and Rec 709 instead. But then SDR went low, it's set at 300 nits, even though it says here HDR nominal peak level. I put it at my monitor or my OLED screen's peak nits, which is 993 nits. And then a little more tweaking just to make sure for your network, I've checked the enable network optimization. I don't check this enable TCP pacing. It kind of makes it funky. Also, the dynamically change bitrate to manage congestion. That's in beta mode. If your LAN is like, not the best, maybe you want to change this, but tends to basically lower the bit rate just to make sure the traffic is, smooth and all. So I'm not checking that because I have a 10 gigabit network going to my Unraid server and stuff. Okay, so that's for the gaming PC. That's all you need right now. Advanced and the video canvas. And then here, when you're creating it, right now I'm setting it to desktop capture, right? So I've added the desktop source, but normally you would want to add, I have it here, but I don't want to because I need to show it to you. You want to use game capture, so basically it communicates directly to your GPU. This, basically whatever the GPU is, what I call this, processing, which is games, then yeah, so this is a direct communication. The downside I noticed for this one, if you have a game capture, any overlay, basically it's not, even the Nvidia overlay is not showing when I'm using the game capture. So that's where you're gonna have to use the desktop capture, I guess, but it's not really optimal. If you want highest gains possible and stuff, you want game capture. Then I also wanted to enable capture cursor, of course, but you want to go to filters, and then you want to add this dedicated NDI output, this one right here, and then I just set the name here, NDI name, which is desktop capture, so I would know on the Unraid server, which I will show it to you in a bit. So that's that. But the common or general issue, especially with NDI, is that when you're sending this one, especially with an audio, there's a bit of a lag, so it's not syncing up the audio and the video. So what you want to do, actually I forgot, when you go to audio, if you notice, I've disabled everything here because we we want to make sure we are having separate dedicated channels for each, including the audio. So we disable all these ones and we want to add them manually here. So that's what I did. I had the mic here. It's going through my Nvidia broadcast. That's one of the reasons why I have the RTX 5080, because of the Nvidia broadcast. Let me just show it to you. Basically what it's doing is that if we come here in audio, I've selected desktop microphone, which is my Rode Video Mic NTG, which is I'm using right now. I've set the noise removal. I've set it to max. I mean, I find it pretty okay. It's pretty useful, especially if you have like a really noisy background and stuff. I've also enabled room echo removal. In your case, you want to, play around with the strength. I just set it to strength right now. I mean, to max strength right now because I'm a bit lazy. And then one thing to note though is that under video, if you notice, I don't have, even though it says here, outdoor virtual camera, that's normally what you want to do. But I'm not doing that. If you can see, it doesn't detect any of the webcam right now, what I'm using, because I have hooked up the webcam directly to my Unraid server. So it doesn't have to send through more bandwidth, to the Unraid server where it gets captured. You want to hook it directly to the Unraid server, which I will show you later on. So that's that. I'm using Nvidia broadcast for noise removal. And then after that, same thing. You want to add a filter, dedicated NDI output, and this one is audio only. If you can see, it should be this dedicated NDI output, audio only. And that goes the same. You will want to add an audio output capture. So this is where all the desktop audio, the speakers that we disabled earlier on the settings, you want to add it here, and so you will see both here, and then obviously rename it so you don't get confused. Same thing, add a dedicated NDI output for the audio and name it. Okay, so that's that. If you can see, I have it here, but you don't really need to enable the preview because that's just going to eat up a little bit more of your GPU, your RTX GPU and stuff, or your AMD GPU. All right, so before I'm going to show you the OBS settings under the Unraid server, where the OBS capture with the NDI, I wanted to show you some settings here. This is a very specific case or a niche. These are for the people who has 10 gigabit network card, especially not only one. You're gonna need all the devices with this. I have enabled the jumbo frames on this on my LAN. So if you go here, jumbo packet, I've set this one to 9014 bytes, basically 9000 kilobits. So that is the jumbo packet. So it's gonna send a network bandwidth with the jumbo frames, especially when pushing 4K at 60 FPS, through NDI and stuff. So that's that. That definitely helps on that. But the downside to this one, you gotta make sure both PCs and including your LAN device supports the jumbo packets or jumbo frames. Otherwise, if one of it doesn't work, and you can have network problems later on. All right, so I digress. Now let's go to the Unraid server settings. All right, so as you can see right here, you see a lot of my clone here and stuff. This is my OBS basically on the Unraid server. So just to show you that this is the Unraid server, and so I even have it RTX 4060. Actually, let's run the Nvidia control panel. Let me just minimize that, and you can see here under my rig, you can see it here. Voila. So this is the Windows VM. So don't flag me for this when I activate Windows. I couldn't care less right now. It's for virtual machine and stuff. So you can see right here we have the CPU, which is Ryzen 7 5700G. That's the Unraid server's CPU right now with greater graphics and all that. And I have 8 GB of RAM, SSD storage and stuff. So anyways, just to be clear, this is the Unraid server right now, not my gaming PC. And then I also have the Nvidia broadcast here. This basically is where the webcam is. So if you can see right here, I have this set here, webcam local. As you can see, it's not capturing, it's not from the NDI and stuff. It's basically a local, and it's taking the Nvidia broadcast here, and I've removed the background. Instead of having a green screen, I have the background removed here through the NDI on the broadcast. The reason why I'm doing this is because Nvidia broadcast uses a lot of GPU resources, which you really need for the gaming you're going to be doing, so you don't have any problems, crashing, bottlenecks, and all that. So instead, I have another RTX, which is 4060. PC, and we're using Nvidia broadcast directly from the Unraid server and stuff. But before I forget, on your gaming PC, you have to go through this one. Assuming you've already installed the distro AV NDI settings. This is the latest version, I guess, or patch. Anyways, you know, just update it to the latest version of the NDI settings, the distro AV, and then you will have to enable this one, main output. Preview output is somewhere, it's kind of like a copy back and stuff. And basically, you know, name your main output name right here. Enable this one and then hit OK. And then from there, it should, when we go back to the Unraid server right here, it should be able to find it or detect it, right? So, you know, on here again, you added NDI plugin, NDI source name. Normally, it has a better name. I don't know why it's the file name right now with this latest patch and stuff. Okay, so add an NDI source name right here. I don't know, create a name. Let's, for example, this is for the game capture. You want to add that. Oh, okay, whatever. Game capture is already used. Put it to whatever. And then we want to have a source name right here. Basically, this is what all the NDI from the gaming PC, right? So, you know, the gaming PC is set up to send the NDI output for the display capture, which is this. So that's why you can see, right, the display capture. If I'm running games, you will set it for the game capture to send the NDI output right here, right? Okay, that's that. So at least you get the point. And then for the mic, again, same thing. Add NDI source name, and then you're gonna see it here. NDI source name, and then you're gonna choose this one is basically the mic. I know it's this one because it didn't update from the stream, but normally if you set the name here, so that's that. That is the mic right here. So that's what you can see right here. Mic on the audio mixer. Now for the audio, again, we want to keep active, but the bandwidth, we want audio only. Send audio only. You don't need the video when you're only, you know, needing the audio, right? Logically. And then also select the source time code, NDI plugin, NDI frame sync. I'm not sure if this is really needed, especially for the audio, but just to be safe, I'm gonna set it here. Also, yeah, I forgot this one, hardware acceleration. You want to use your GPU. This is on the Unraid server, right? The capturing. You don't want to use the CPU. So always check this one, hardware acceleration. Now, at the lowest right here, I've set it to lowest latency. Well, basically, this is the audio. And, you know, from past experiences with older NDI versions, there's some delay issues, which is why we're separating everything right here. You want the lowest latency on the audio. Obviously, clicking on the plugin source prop audio, because otherwise, you know, you need the audio. If you uncheck that, then you're not getting any audio, right? You need to check that. All right, that's that. Now we go to the settings. Right here under settings, obviously you go to video. Your canvas again is at 4K, at least in my case. If you have a 1440p monitor, then you set it to 1440p. Output scale resolution also 4K, so you don't need to downscale anything, no more extra processing. Common FPS value is at 60. Then before we go to output, let's go to advanced. Same thing. For this one, I didn't really need to have it as, you know, above normal or something for process priority, because this is the Unraid server and this is the VM. Nobody, you know, it's not really running anything else, just the OBS. Now we go to under the video section, Direct 3D 11 again. Color format, same as what you have sent, so you don't have to, you know, there's no funky stuff going on with conversion. Basically set, match whatever you're sending, right? So color space 709, color range limited, SDR level 300, AGR nominal peak. I'm not sure if this actually applies, but just set it anyways for your monitor's peak levels. And then we go down here. I am recording, so I set automatic remute to MP4. You'll see in a bit. And then under network, again, enable network optimization. Also IP family, just set it to IPv4 only. If you set to both IPv6, sometimes the NDI gets weird and all that. You know, we're not really using IPv6 right now. So yeah, and then sources, of course, enable browser source information. Everything, try as much as possible, use GPU. Now let's go to output. If you're streaming, you're going to be using this one, but I am not setting this up because I am recording. Basically, we go to the recording, and under recording, we're recording in format in MKV. The reason why I'm setting it to MKV is because if you record in MP4 right away, and let's say, for example, something, you know, like the computer or your network kind of gets interrupted or disconnected, and or if OBS, let's say, for example, it crashed or there was an error, the entire recording of the video, if you are able to save it, gets corrupted. You won't be able to use it with MP4 directly. So you want to save it in MKV format, and that was the reason why under advanced we have this just automatically remixes to MP4. So after saving to MKV, it remixes to MP4. Anyways, I digress. Now, video encoder, Nvidia Unraid AV1. So this is the Unraid PC already, right? Oh, Unraid server. I have the RTX 4060. I don't need an RTX 5080 on the capturing because I just need the NVENC for the RTX video cards. Right here, audio encoder, leave it there. Audio track, yeah, that's one audio track. Just need a single audio track for this, and then you don't need to rescale the output. It's disabled because we're recording in 4K. Now, rate control set to constant QP, CQP. Before I used to use constant bitrate now, but I found out CQP is much better. So, and then constant CQP value, I've set it to 18 right now. You can play around, but I'm in 4K. I found the best balance for quality and smoothness stuff at 18. If it's still stuttery, go up to 19 or 20. And then keyframe interval 2 seconds. Preset, set it to slow, good quality. Not really the best quality because the NVENC encoder might get a bit of lag. There might be some drop frames and all that just to be able to encode all that bandwidth. So set it to slow, which is pretty good already. Minimal, you don't really see a lot of visible difference and stuff. Tuning, set to high quality. Multipass mode, I've set it to single pass. It's pretty good. Profile, set it to main, and well, there's only one here. Look ahead, basically what this does is if you enable it, it increases the visual quality, but it uses a lot more GPU. If you're recording in 4K, you don't really need to make it more, I don't know, crispier or clearer, so you don't need this. Adaptive quantization is basically also temporal spatial adaptive, basically. The bitrate, again, you don't really need this. It's just going to increase the GPU resource, utilization of resources. If you're recording in 4K, right? Now, B frames to set it to, B frame as reference, disabled. So that's that. Audio quality, set it to, I've set it to default 160 audio bitrate. So yeah, that's how all these settings that I'm recording right now, basically. So that's the best and optimal setting so far that I've found for recording at 4K at 60 FPS on the OBS Studio dual PC, basically, through NDI. Especially when you're playing in 4K or 1440p at like 144 Hertz or 240 Hertz. In my case, the settings that I've shown you is going to make your recording or streaming very smooth and all that. But before I forget, there's really a latest issue right now with the NDI. Basically, it's because of this Windows update. If you can see this one, I have Windows 11, so it's the KB5063878. I noticed if this gets installed, basically the NDI, or I don't know what's going on right now, like an actual thing, but your stream or when you're sending to the capture PC, OBS settings and stuff, it gets stuttery for no reason. I don't know why, but it has something to do with this one, and the NDI people has known this issue recently already. People a lot checking on the thread. I'm gonna put the link down below on the GitHub issue thread on this one, as well as Windows or Microsoft actually is aware of this, if I'm not mistaken. There are two options that you can do right now. First, well, you can uninstall this one for both the gaming PC and the capture PC for the OBS, right? But the problem is Windows always forcing you to basically update or download this one. See, it's asking right now, pending restart, right? So the other option number 2, is at least what NDI has suggested at the moment. It is a temporary fix or a band-aid. Let me just change to my desktop capture here. Okay, we are under Unraid. So what you want to do is download the NDI tools, NDI launcher, go to Access Manager. This is what they have suggested right now, the NDI people. So under Access Manager, you go to Advanced, click on Receive, and then under Receive mode, instead of auto recommended, change it to single TCP right now. That is the band-aid, especially when you try to uninstall that KB Windows update thing. But again, right here, it's always asking me to install this again. I have uninstalled this already, but Microsoft wants to force their way. So that is the band-aid. So that's it for this video. Hopefully you find value in all the settings I have given you on this video for the OBS dual PC, recording in 4K at 60 Hertz or 60 FPS rather, through the NDI. And if you do, don't forget to smash the like button. It helps a lot. And if you haven't yet, consider subscribing to the channel. And I'm going to see you on the next video for more reviews.